You feel pain like no other pain, and you know that in your life it's going to be very difficult to...
Prince William believed he had already endured every painful truth his mother's death could leave behind. He was wrong. Inside a sealed red crown folder, hidden for nearly 3 decades, lay Diana's final private wish, a command concerning her sons, the monarchy, and the promise William had unknowingly broken. As he reached the final handwritten page, the future king stopped reading, lowered his head, and whispered a single word: Harry. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William sat motionless in a room at Windsor Castle, where the morning meeting had ended in ruin. The Royal Archives, the secure collection where official and private royal papers are preserved, had released a folder no one expected him to see. Diana had instructed that the monarchy must never divide her sons, and she had demanded a charitable trust controlled jointly by William and Harry to protect the humanitarian work she believed belonged to them. The prince pushed his chair backward. He removed his glasses, stared at the archivist, and asked why the file had been hidden. That silence mattered, because William was confronting proof that his mother had feared the crown could turn duty into distance. He had spent years telling himself that separation from Harry was necessary to defend Catherine, protect his children, and preserve stability. Now Diana's words challenged every defense he had built. Catherine entered after being summoned and found her husband standing near the window, unable to read another sentence aloud. She placed a hand on his arm, but he barely moved. William showed her the handwritten line that had broken him. William will carry the crown, but he must never carry it at the cost of his brother. The princess understood why the message cut so deeply. It did not accuse him of hatred. It accused him of allowing responsibility to become an excuse for loss. Then the folder revealed something worse. Diana's instructions referred to a second envelope addressed only to Harry, yet the archive register showed no record of it ever being filed. Someone had removed it before the document was sealed. William closed the folder, pressed both hands against the table, and ordered silence. No statement would leave the palace until he knew who had concealed the file and where Harry's letter had gone. The search pointed toward 3 people who had known Diana's wishes before her death. One was still inside the royal household. But before William could confront the person who buried his mother's words, he had to face the people those words could destroy, and the brother whose absence now filled every line. The document did not merely expose a secret, it reopened the most painful relationship in the modern royal family. William had spent years convincing himself that distance from Harry was necessary, for the crown, for Catherine, and for his children. Diana's words shattered that defense. She had feared this exact separation, named its dangers, and entrusted her eldest son with preventing the very future that had now become reality. William read the pages again inside the private sitting room, slower this time, as though each sentence might change if he gave it enough attention. The future monarch had been trained to protect succession, the planned order deciding who inherits the throne, along with stability, discipline, and public trust. Those duties had shaped every decision he made, but they had also taught him to treat personal pain as a danger that had to be contained. Catherine watched her husband reach the final page and lower the document into his lap. He no longer looked shocked. He looked defeated. William admitted that he could not tell whether he had truly protected his family or simply allowed the institution to make every difficult choice for him. The princess listened without interrupting, because she understood what was at stake. Reconciliation with Harry could reopen old wounds, but permanent separation could leave the next king carrying guilt into his reign. Across the Atlantic, Harry received an urgent, secure message requesting direct contact with his brother. The Duke saw William's name, locked the phone, and walked away. Minutes later, he returned and read the message again. He had spent years believing the palace valued obedience more than loyalty, especially after Diana's death. Now the same institution was asking him to trust the brother he believed had chosen duty over him. Diana's wish went far beyond a simple plea for peace. Her written instruction demanded that neither son should ever be publicly used to shame, weaken, or discredit the other for the benefit of the monarchy. William then discovered an unsigned palace memorandum, a formal internal note used to advise senior royal decision-makers, recommending that her request remain sealed, because joint authority between the brothers could complicate future command. William looked at Catherine and asked, "What if she knew what they would do to us?" The princess did not soften the answer. She held his gaze and said, "Then you need to know who they were." Charles learned moments later that the folder had been opened. The king sat alone with the notification in his hand, placed it face down, and ordered his private secretary to cancel the next meeting. He offered no explanation. He did not need to. The handwriting on the memorandum appeared disturbingly familiar. It suggested the decision to silence Diana's wish had begun long before William became Prince of Wales, and that his own father may have known far more than he had ever admitted. To understand why the document was hidden, William would have to return to the night Diana placed her fear into writing, and to the conversation that turned a mother's concern into a royal threat. Years before royal interviews, public accusations, and closed palace doors divided her sons, Diana saw the danger forming. It began during one private evening at Kensington Palace, after William and Harry had been taken upstairs following a tense family discussion. She remained below with a legal advisor, 2 pages of handwritten notes, and a conviction that the crown would one day force her boys to choose between brotherhood and survival. Diana had watched the pressure build long before anyone else admitted it. William's future role placed him under the weight of succession, the formal order deciding who inherits the throne, while Harry's position as the younger son left him vulnerable to feeling secondary, expendable, and unheard. She feared one boy would be trained to suppress emotion, while the other would be punished for showing too much of it. The breaking point came in December 1996, during a memorial planning meeting at Kensington Palace. A court official referred to William as the future, and Harry as the support. Diana ended the discussion immediately. After the boys went upstairs, she summoned her legal advisor back to the palace and repeated the words with quiet fury. To everyone else, it had sounded harmless. To her, it was the first clear sign that the institution had already assigned her sons unequal emotional value. Diana told the advisor she had seen William begin hiding his fear behind discipline. She had also watched Harry use anger to conceal how frightened and excluded he felt. The princess believed those patterns could harden with age, until duty became silence, resentment became rebellion, and brotherhood became another casualty of royal survival. Then Diana asked the question that changed everything. Can a mother protect her children from a system after she is gone? The advisor warned that her wishes might carry no constitutional authority, meaning they could express her intentions without legally controlling the crown. She listened, lowered her pen, and continued writing anyway. Legal power was uncertain. A mother's warning was not. Diana created 2 documents that night. One was a formal statement for the crown. The other was a private letter addressed only to Harry. William's duty to protect their bond appeared in both, but only the official statement was entered into the archive register. The second envelope disappeared from the record before the file was sealed. Before closing the folder, Diana added one final handwritten instruction. It must be delivered when William became Prince of Wales, the title traditionally given to the heir closest to the throne, not after he became king. She pressed the wax seal herself, held her hand over it, and told the advisor, "He will understand when the title begins taking more than it gives." Someone later changed those words. Prince of Wales became upon accession, delaying the release until William reached the throne. That single alteration transformed a mother's warning into a concealed royal weapon, and William now intended to confront the man who might know exactly why it was changed. No advisors entered the room. No minutes were taken. When William confronted King Charles inside a private Windsor study, he carried only Diana's folder and the question that had followed him since sunrise. The king watched his son place the document between them. Neither man sat down. For several seconds, the future of the monarchy seemed to rest on which of them would speak first. William broke the silence by pointing to the altered release date. The Prince of Wales, the title held by the person first in line to inherit the throne, should have received Diana's warning the moment that role became his. Instead, someone had changed the instruction and buried it until his eventual accession, meaning the day he would formally become king. That delay mattered because the damage had already been done. Harry had left. Trust had collapsed. Their mother's greatest fear had become real. Charles admitted during the private conversation that he knew Diana had prepared instructions concerning both sons. He insisted he had never read the complete document while she was alive. William did not accept the distinction. He asked whether his father had believed him too weak to hear the truth, or simply too valuable to be allowed to obey it. The king answered carefully. He said decisions made after Diana's death were intended to stop grief from controlling the lives of two young boys. William's expression hardened. When Charles described her wish as emotionally powerful but constitutionally dangerous, the future monarch struck the folder with his palm. Brotherhood should never have been treated as a threat, he said. Charles finally revealed the decision through a documented account preserved in the committee record. A senior royal panel had reviewed Diana's instructions and concluded that giving both brothers joint control of her charitable legacy could create a competing center of influence. In plain terms, officials feared that William and Harry might one day command public loyalty outside the direct control of the sovereign. The confession cut deeper when the king admitted he had opposed destroying the folder but accepted the decision to delay it. He believed time would reduce its power. Instead, time had increased the pain. William stepped closer and asked the question neither man could escape. "Did you choose the crown over us?" Charles turned away, placed one hand against the mantle, and answered, "I chose what I believed would keep you both standing." His voice broke as he acknowledged that the choice may have helped drive the brothers apart. William saw the regret. He offered no forgiveness. Before the prince left, Charles gave one final warning. Camilla knew who had removed Harry's envelope, and exposing that truth could tear through the royal household. William entered the room seeking responsibility from his father, but he left carrying another name, and a secret Camilla could no longer avoid. Camilla had spent years learning how to survive royal silence. She understood which questions required answers, which demanded patience, and which could destroy the person asking them. But when William entered Clarence's house carrying Diana's red folder, survival was no longer enough. He did not accuse her immediately. He simply placed the document on the table and asked where Harry's letter had been taken. Camilla held her composure, but the balance of power had already shifted. Clarence's house was a senior royal residence used by the king and queen. Yet her influence inside it still depended on Charles and the trust of the heir. William knew that. He also knew the missing letter might contain words capable of changing Harry's view of Diana, his brother, and the institution that had shaped their separation. The queen consort refused at first to discuss decisions made before her marriage. She said those choices belonged to another time and another household. William's response was immediate. Silence, he told her, had shaped his entire adult life. It had influenced his duty, his grief, and the distance between two brothers. He would no longer accept silence as neutrality. Camilla's control weakened when the prince asked whether Diana's wish had been suppressed, because the palace feared her influence would survive through her sons. She looked away, then revealed the truth during their recorded private conversation. A former private secretary had removed Harry's envelope after deciding its language might encourage the younger prince to challenge future royal authority. The admission changed everything. Camilla explained that the letter had not been destroyed. A handwritten inventory note showed it had been transferred to a private security box registered under a dormant Crown property account. A royal holding kept active on paper even though it was no longer used in daily operations. Camilla opened a locked drawer, removed the inventory slip, and pushed it across the table. William did not touch it. He studied her face and asked why she had waited until now. The Queen answered with visible strain. Charles had once made her promise never to reopen the conflict, believing the truth would cause more damage than the concealment. But she had watched William and Harry become strangers, and the silence had protected no one. It had only protected the decision. William finally picked up the note. As Prince of Wales, he ordered the immediate recovery of the box. Camilla warned that retrieving it would expose every official who had approved the concealment, and force the king to confront the machinery built around his own authority. Then William read the location. The box was not at Windsor. It was not at Buckingham Palace. It rested inside a sealed chamber beneath St. James's Palace, accessible only with the sovereign's approval. The missing letter was finally within reach, but recovering it would force Charles to choose between the machinery of the Crown and the sons Diana had begged him not to divide. The security box was smaller than William expected. It contained no jewels, no constitutional decree, and no evidence of financial betrayal. Inside was a single cream envelope bearing Harry's childhood name in Diana's handwriting. When the seal finally broke, every person in the chamber understood that the monarchy had crossed a line from which it could never fully retreat. Charles had authorized the chamber beneath St. James's Palace to be opened only after William refused to move forward without the sovereign's approval. That formal consent mattered, because the sovereign is the reigning monarch, with final authority over protected crown property. By signing the order himself, the king accepted personal responsibility for ending a concealment that had survived for decades. William held the envelope but did not open it. The letter belonged to Harry, and no title gave the future king the right to read words intended for his brother. A secure call was arranged. When the Duke appeared on the screen, his face was guarded, his voice cold, and his first question was not about the palace. He looked at the handwriting and asked, "Did our mother really write my name?" William turned the envelope toward the camera. He apologized for failing to protect the bond Diana had described. But Harry did not soften. He said he had needed a brother, not an heir who allowed palace instructions to speak for him. The words landed hard, because both men knew the truth had become larger than one hidden letter. Years of anger were now sitting between them. Harry finally gave permission for the first paragraph to be read aloud. William unfolded the page and began. Diana told her younger son that his worth would never depend on title, rank, or closeness to the throne. She warned him not to let royal approval decide whether he believed he mattered. Then the message cut deeper. Diana instructed Harry to trust William's heart, even when he could not trust the institution around him. She also warned that anger could be used by others to separate him from the people he loved. Harry removed his glasses and covered his face. William struggled to finish the sentence. Charles stood beyond the camera's view, listening but refusing to enter a moment that belonged to his sons. The fallout began before the call ended. William ordered an internal investigation, a formal palace inquiry into misconduct, covering the altered release date and the missing envelope. 2 senior household officials lost archive access that same day. Camilla received the suspension notice alone. Her testimony had now placed her against the very figures who had once protected her position, and she understood the cost. But the investigation was no longer the hardest choice. William and Harry now had to decide whether Diana's wish would remain a painful message from the past, or become the command that finally changed their future. With the letter recovered and the palace exposed, the brothers had to speak without titles, advisors, or witnesses, and decide whether anything between them could still be saved. For the first time in years, there was no palace representative seated beside William, and no public relations advisor preparing Harry's response. The brothers spoke alone through a secure private connection, with Diana's letters placed between them. The silence was uncomfortable, but it was honest. Neither man could hide behind the crown, the press, or old accusations. They had only their mother's words, and the damage they had both helped create. William had temporarily stopped the internal investigation from releasing names. The inquiry, a formal palace process used to examine wrongdoing, would continue, but he refused to let punishment replace the decision Diana had asked her sons to make. Harry agreed to speak only after receiving a written promise that no statement, photograph, or edited account of the conversation would reach the media. The prince spoke first. He admitted that duty had sometimes become a shield, especially when protecting Catherine and preparing for kingship made reconciliation appear dangerous. William said every attempt to reach Harry had seemed capable of creating another crisis, so he chose distance. The future king finally confessed that silence had felt safer than honesty. Harry listened without interrupting. Then the Duke admitted that public anger had given him control when he felt powerless. But it had also changed the way he judged his brother. Every disagreement became proof that William had abandoned him. Every palace decision felt personal. He had stopped separating the man from the institution surrounding him. William opened Diana's formal document and read its final line aloud. "My sons must be allowed to disagree without being taught to become enemies." Neither brother spoke for several seconds. Harry then revealed through their recorded private conversation that he had kept a birthday card from Diana since childhood. Inside, she had written that brothers could fight and still choose each other when it mattered. The message proved her fear had existed long before the sealed folder. William removed his signet ring, a small engraved ring traditionally connected with family identity and rank, and placed it beside the crown document. He said he was no longer speaking as the heir, he was speaking as Diana's eldest son. Then he asked what reconciliation would require. Harry did not demand a return to royal duty. He asked for private contact, protection from hostile briefings by either household, and joint control of the charitable trust their mother had imagined. William agreed. His voice broke when he admitted he could not restore the years they had lost. Harry answered quietly. Their mother had never asked them to recover the past. She had asked them to stop sacrificing the future. The brothers had reached a fragile peace, but the palace could not hide Diana's words forever. By morning, the world would know her final wish had survived, and that her sons had chosen to honor it. Outside the gates, that private decision was about to become a national reckoning over loyalty, secrecy, and the true cost of the crown. By sunrise, the secret no longer belonged to the palace. Diana's wish had crossed from a sealed royal chamber into homes, newsrooms, and crowded streets across Britain. The public was not reacting to a constitutional technicality. They were reacting to a mother who had predicted her son's separation, and to a monarchy that had hidden her warning until the damage was already visible to the world. The palace released a carefully worded confirmation before the morning broadcasts began. It stated that a private document linked to Diana had been recovered, and that William and Harry had jointly approved a review of how it had been handled. The statement did not publish the full text, but it confirmed that the document concerned the brothers' relationship and their mother's humanitarian legacy. That mattered because the story was no longer about private grief alone. It had become a test of whether the crown could admit that institutional control had deepened a family wound. A national newspaper captured the shock in one brutal image. Its front page placed William and Harry on opposite sides, with a wide empty space between them. Beneath the headline, "Diana's Last Command, Do Not Let Them Become Enemies." The words spread across television screens within minutes. Supporters praised the prince for reopening the truth, while critics accused the monarchy of protecting authority at the expense of two grieving boys. By late afternoon, hundreds had gathered outside Kensington Palace. One woman placed 2 white roses beneath Diana's memorial gates and tied their stems together with a blue ribbon. Evening broadcasters repeated the image as a symbol of reconciliation. One presenter then read the confirmed line about allowing the brothers to disagree without becoming enemies, and said it described the entire modern royal crisis with devastating precision. Charles understood that silence was no longer possible. The king approved a recorded palace statement, accepting that decisions made in the crown's name had caused pain. He refused to place all blame on officials who were no longer alive, and declared that the sovereign, the reigning monarch responsible for the institution, must also acknowledge harm created by royal authority. Catherine watched the Kensington Palace crowd through a private television feed. She turned to William and told him the public was not demanding perfection. It was demanding proof that Diana's words had changed something. The future king knew she was right. William and Harry responded together. Through a jointly signed announcement, they authorized the Diana Brotherhood Trust, dedicated to mental health, wounded veterans, homelessness, and children separated by family conflict. The decision shifted the public mood from fury to guarded hope. The world had delivered its judgment on the hidden document, but the lasting verdict would depend on what William did when the cameras left, and only his mother's promise remained. The hidden document did not restore Diana to her sons. It did not erase the interviews, accusations, silences, or birthdays spent apart. But it forced the monarchy to confront a truth it had postponed for nearly 30 years. Protecting the crown while allowing a family to fracture was never stability. It was loss disguised as duty. William now had to decide whether his mother's wish would remain words or become the principle of his future reign. William accepted Diana's instruction as a personal moral duty, not a constitutional order. A constitutional order is a formal command tied to the legal structure of the monarchy. But this promise carried a different kind of power. It demanded humanity. The future king declared in a recorded palace statement that his service would never require the deliberate destruction of family bonds, no matter how politically difficult reconciliation became. Harry agreed to rebuild private contact with his brother while remaining outside full-time royal duty. The Duke did not ask for titles, ceremonies, or a dramatic return. He asked for consistency, honesty, and protection from the forces that had once turned every disagreement into public warfare. Their peace would not be measured by appearances. It would be measured by whether they answered each other's calls when no one was watching. Charles then authorized the publication of the Archive Review. The documented findings confirmed that fear of divided authority had caused officials to delay Diana's instructions, conceal Harry's letter, and make decisions for both sons without their knowledge. The king accepted responsibility for approving the delay. During a private meeting, he told William that regret could not repair the past, but truth could stop the same failure from becoming inherited royal behavior. William later returned alone to Diana's former sitting room at Kensington Palace. He placed a certified copy of the document beside a family photograph, read the final line once more, and signed the order establishing the joint trust. Catherine joined him after the signing. He admitted that the crown had taught him strength meant carrying pain in silence. She answered that real strength meant refusing to pass that silence to George, Charlotte, and Louis. William called Harry without aides arranging the conversation. The younger brother answered immediately. They spoke about the trust, their children, and a private meeting already planned away from royal residences. Nothing about the exchange was grand, yet that simplicity proved the deepest change. New archive rules followed. No private family document could now be delayed or reclassified without written consent and independent oversight. No future royal child would inherit a secret designed to control them. Diana's wish had not defeated the monarchy. It had corrected it. William left the document unsealed. Harry remained part of their mother's legacy, and the promise was finally honored. Not perfectly, but completely. The crown survived the revelation, yet it emerged changed forever. Diana's final wish proved that the strongest monarchy was not the one that concealed its wounds, but the one courageous enough to heal them. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.